you know? Did you know? Did you know?
Peace and love, family, and welcome back. Today we are going to get into creating sacred space for our ancestors. So just like you have a space where you sleep, which is your bedroom, a space where you cook, which is your kitchen, a space where you may worship, which may be the church or the mosque, it's the same way we need to create a space for the ancestors. Sacred space is really a reflection of your spirit. It's a reflection of your soul. It's where you're going to go to nourish that aspect of yourself that needs to be nourished. So just like how you'd go into the kitchen and, nourish your body with food, it's the same way you would go into the sacred space and nourish your mind through meditation, through ritual, and through connecting with the ancestors. So we're going to jump right into it in terms of the components needed, the basic components needed to create a sacred space for the ancestors. So the first thing that you'll need is a wooden table of some sort. So when I first began connecting with the ancestors, I didn't have much financially, so I worked with what I had, and I would urge you to do the same if that's all you're able to do at this time. So my son had an armoire, which was the big dressers where it opens up and it has 2 drawers or 3 drawers at the bottom. I emptied the top of that and I just brought it into a little space, and I put the components of the ancestor altar in there. And because my space was very small, I ensured that, I closed it when I wasn't using it, and I opened it when I decided to use it. If you have a little coffee table, even if it's the mantle of a fireplace that's wooden, whatever it is that you have to use, don't let the fact that you can't get a big, lavish, ancestral altar that you may see online, don't let that stop you from creating your sacred space. Use what you have at this time, and when you're able to do better, then you do so. I don't have my armoire anymore. As the years went on, I was able to get actual shelving, because I started working with the gods and the ancestors as well. So I have more than one altar, and things just continued to expand as the years went on. But again, use what you have. So we're going to start off with a wooden table. We're not going to use metal or ceramic or glass. We're going to stick with wood, okay? Because we want, the wood carries energy, and we want to be able to use things that are a part of nature, okay? So once you have that, some people will choose to put a cloth over it. Some people will choose not to. At the beginning, I didn't, just because of the way my armoire was set up. Depending on the type of ritual that I'm doing, I will put a cloth, but generally speaking, I don't. So the next element you want is fire, okay? This can be in the form of a candle flame, a 7-day vigil, a tea light, whatever it may be. So the fire basically represents the force, the living force, okay? It connects us to the ancestors. I like to look at fire as a portal. So when I'm speaking to the ancestors, what I'll do is I'll look into the fire and I'll speak. So I see the fire as a portal to the ancestral realms where they can hear me more clearly. And when you think about it too, when you go into, I'm not Catholic, but I've seen it on TV. When you go into a Catholic church, you'll see a whole bunch of candles. When you go into the Buddhist temple, you see a whole bunch of candles. That's because lighting that candle is actually a way of initiating contact and letting the other realms know, hey, hello, I'm here and I'm ready to communicate with you. So you want to always make sure that you have some sort of flame on your altar. The next thing that you want to have is water, okay? A glass of water, a bowl of water, whatever type of water it may be. Water represents your emotions, your ability to balance your emotions, the way that you feel, right? And then water can also be used as an offering for the ancestors as well. So you want to make sure that you have a cup of water or a bowl of water on your ancestral altar. The other thing that you're going to need is offerings of food. So I know a lot of people are just like, why do I need to put food on the altar? The ancestors are dead. They can't eat it. So let me explain to you why. So food contains something called calories. Calories, in essence, is energy because you could burn calories, right? And when you're burning calories, you're burning energy. Ancestors are energies, right? So when we put food on the altar, we're inviting them to take part and to utilize that energy. Because remember, if you're the first one in your family that you know to have begin venerating your ancestors could be very weak. They need substance. They need something to fuel them. And your altar is going to be that location for them to fill up, almost like going to a gas station and them needing to fill up. When you got more gas, you can go faster. You know what I mean? So the altar is going to be a place where your ancestors can come and get that fuel. So that water and that food is going to be their fuel. And what they'll do is they'll take the energy from that food or that water. If you do have, things in your house, little insects and things of that nature, what you can do is use, get a plate and cover it, or get an actual bowl that comes with a covering. You can also leave it on the altar for a minimum of 1 hour, and then you can take it off of the altar. So don't think once you have the food on the altar that you have to leave it there for weeks. I like to put food on the altar every day. It could literally be whatever you're eating. So if it's Taco Tuesday night at home, put a taco on the altar. If you're making a big feast, what I usually do is just take a little bit of everything, like, your mashed potatoes, your broccoli, your tofu, or your chicken, or whatever it may be, and just put a few of everything in one plate and put that on the altar. I like to let it sit there for 24 hours, and then I'll change it out the next day. If I wake up in the morning and I'm home, I make myself a cup of tea, I'll bring the ancestors a cup of tea, and maybe I won't give dinner that same night. There really are no rules. It's all about following your intuition and just ensuring that you're doing your duty to ensure that you are giving your ancestors energy. And if you don't want to make offerings, I'm going to show you, or food offerings, I'm going to show you another way that you can get around that as well. So another element that we want to ensure that we have on the altar is air, okay? And this could be in the form of incense. For me, I love incense. I am huge on scents, okay? I love to smell. I love it when my altar room just smells nice and sweet. So I burn everything. I'll do my sage smudges. I'll burn sandalwood, frankincense and myrrh, patchouli, jasmine. Depending on, if I'm working with a certain energy, I'll burn an incense pertaining to them. If I'm doing a protection ritual, I'll burn Palo Santo or sage, things of that nature. If I'm doing money work, I'm burning cedar. So you can use that as the element of air. Another thing that you can do is put a feather on the altar. That could be a representation of air. Again, it's all about following, your inner guidance and doing what feels right for you. The next big thing that you should always have on your ancestor altar is a picture of your ancestors. So if you don't have a picture of your ancestors, I don't have all the pictures of my ancestors. I literally have I want to say maybe 6 pictures, my grandparents and 2 uncles that have passed. What I did was I actually got a little book from the dollar store, a tiny little cute book. And what I did was I spoke to my aunts and my uncles and my parents, and I asked them about people that passed before I was born or while I was a baby. So I wrote the names of those ancestors, first name, last name at birth. If they don't know their birth date, at least the month of their birth or even the year, and I'll keep that on my ancestral altar. So again, you can have pictures, of your ancestors, or you can have pictures and a book. If you don't have pictures, don't worry about it. Just get the book. And again, if you come from an adopted family or whatever it may be, your intention is good enough, okay? So don't feel like you can't initiate contact if you don't have a picture or if you're unaware of the names of your ancestors, okay? Another thing that you want to have on your altar is something that represents the earth, okay? So this can be a plant, this can be, a crystal, a stone, or whatever it may be. What we're trying to do is actually bring in the elements of nature on the ancestral altar to kind of bring in that level of oneness to the altar, and also to invite your ascended ancestors, since that is how they resonated when they were here. They resonated with nature. They were one with nature at that time. Some extra things that you can put on the altar include things that you know that your ancestors liked. That will help draw their energy to your altar so they can hear you more clearly. So a lot of people will put rum on the altar. Some people will put cigars, a pack of cigarettes, especially if you're doing healing work, for the ancestors that are not necessarily ascended. You want to put, if they had a favorite, doll, if it was a child or a baby that passed and they had a favorite garment or a favorite toy or whatever it may be. Get creative, and again, follow your intuition. When you step back and look at your altar, so long as it feels right, then your altar is what it's supposed to be, and it looks how it's supposed to look. There is no right way, there is no wrong way, and as you can see in the pictures that I'm showing you, is that altars look, different from, different countries to depending on how much space you have, set up and how you choose to honor your ancestors. A lot of people like to have their ancestral altar not too jam-packed because they do a lot of rituals, so they need space for candles and things of that nature. Where some people like their ancestral altar to be filled, with oranges and apples and foods and candles and pictures, and every inch has something on it. And that's just as powerful as the one that only has a few things. So again, follow your vibe and do what you feel is right. So in terms of sacred space, I always tell people to, create a sacred space somewhere where there's not a lot of traffic in the house. I know for me, my sacred space is actually in my basement. I've always had my sacred space in my basement. And that's just because, there's not as much traffic down there, and I was able to kind of block off an area. So when I'm ready to, do my meditation, speak to my ancestors about very private things, I am in my own space to do so. If you don't have the space, you're living in an apartment, every space is taken. Again, you can put up a temporary altar. You can get, clear off that coffee table that you have beside your couch in the living room, and, put a little plant, put a picture of your ancestors, or have your book. You don't have to put a picture. You can put a little book, light your candle, and just put a plate of food. You know what I mean? Say your prayer, leave it there for an hour, move the food, move the candle, and that's it. So it's really about just working with what you have and doing what you can. Don't make the whole fet of creating a sacred space be something stressful. It's supposed to be something beautiful, a beautiful undertaking, a beautiful process. And the ancestors know your heart. They know what you're able to afford. They know what you're able to do. So do what you can and just do it with love, okay? So the next thing that we're going to talk about is ancestor money. This is super important, and this can actually be used in replace of food offerings. So ancestor money is basically money that's used in the astral worlds. So a lot of times when we transition, through my teachings with mentors and things of that nature, I come to the understanding that in the astral world, food and water and shelter and things of that nature are very hard to come by, which is why the ancestors depend on us so much to help them. Okay, so the ancestral money is basically money that the ancestors can use in the astral world to help them. So a lot of times when, we transition into the other realm, we may leave debt, okay? So the debt that we leave, whether it be, having children and, not taking out an insurance policy, now the burden of the upbringing of those children are on other family members, or you having a house and it not being fully paid off, or you having a pile of credit card and school loan debt, whatever it may be, that debt actually follows you into the ancestral realms. And if you have enough people in your lineage that died with debt and that were always, quote unquote poor, or had some sort of poverty consciousness, then you yourself may be suffering from that as well, because remember, we are the culmination of our ancestors. So poverty consciousness is another thing that, we can work with the ancestors to help heal. That being said, when we go into the ancestral realm, sometimes we accumulate karmic debt or tribulus, okay? And what this does is that it hinders the ancestors from elevating, okay? And it can make them very energetically weak. If they're energetically weak, they're unable to help us in the way that we would like them to. So it's really, really important to burn that ancestral money. Okay, getting a fireproof bowl. You can go to your local Chinese market. If you look it's usually like in the back, they have all the ancestor money. They have the bowls to burn, your ancestor money. They have gold leaves and silver leaves and different things that you could send to the ancestors in those realms. Of course, you want to practice safe fire practices. Burning that ancestor money, the energy of that money is going to get to your ancestors, and that's going to help release that karmic debt that they're in, give them energy, so in turn they can help us. Okay, so ancestor money is another component you want to ensure that you have on the altar. So that's basically it for this video. What I want you guys to do now is to go through the checklist that I'm going to provide, ensure that you have some or all of the things on the checklist, and begin thinking about, where do you want to connect with your ancestors in your home? Where do you want to create your sacred space? This is exciting, okay? This is a place where you get a chance to nourish your spirit and your soul, where you get a chance to heal yourself, to heal your children, to release generational patterns, to be more than you currently are, because we all have a purpose in life. Everything that we're doing right now, we can always do better. We can always be better. Everything that we aspire to do, we have the capacity to do it. And now we're in a position where we can create a space to invite an energy into our lives that's going to help us get there. So let this be a fun, progressive undertaking, and I will see you in the next video.
Did you know? Did you know? Did you know?